In America, nearly half of all violent crimes are gang-related. Unfortunately, Georgia communities are not immune to this type of organized crime, and member recruitment is on the rise. According to the Georgia Gang Investigators Association, there are an estimated 71,000 validated gang affiliates and over 1,500 suspected gang networks across the state, including over 13,000 documented gang members in Georgia prisons.
That man really hate, but she said that nigga got no face, so gang them say they wanna take them down, let's go. Since you hang with them, yeah, you gon' be the one next to go. With the blazers, yeah, I'm gon' get that boy beat the road. Still with them same young niggas that I wipe your nose. I wipe your nose, I wipe you down if I really like your pole. These niggas really broke and that shit is getting old. That nigga said he wanted smoke, but I heard he snitched and told.
Even more concerning, criminals are now using social media as a recruitment tool to specifically target a younger audience.
I'm in the middle of
Mostly, man, mostly. Mostly, man.
Got a whole shit mad at me. I guess still going up. Push up that truck like a back seat. Sorry, I nigga ain't fuck with that. Breaking skis. Trying to fuck with this. Nigga be kept out every shit.
Mostly now, mostly.
In the fall of 2016, 15-year-old DeAndre Mitchell was a constant juvenile troublemaker affiliated with the Rolling 20s Crip gang in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So his mother decided to send him to Georgia with her friend's family to help keep him out of trouble. So on October 18, 2016, his mother sent him to stay in Clayton County, Georgia, with her friend's 6 kids and her husband. But the next day, DeAndre started to hang out with fellow Rolling 20 Crip gang members in DeKalb County, Georgia, at an apartment drug house. While DeAndre was at the apartment, he made his way to steal multiple firearms from the gang and fled. The Crips contacted DeAndre multiple times, giving him a deadline to return the stolen guns, or a female family member would be killed. In fear of the Crips coming to find him and retaliate against him, DeAndre fled back to Chattanooga with the guns. The Crips were finally able to get the Clayton County address that DeAndre was previously staying at in Georgia, and they were unaware that he had fled back to Tennessee. On October 22nd, at roughly 5 a.m., at the Libby Lane home in Clayton County, there were 6 kids home sleeping. The kids' ages ranged from 6 to 15 years old, and both parents were out at the club, partying late, with the kids at home by themselves with no parental supervision. When 8 members of the Rolling 20 Crip gang kicked down the door of the home in search of DeAndre and the guns he had stolen from them, they discovered that DeAndre and the guns were not there. This made them furious, leading one gang member to shoot 11-year-old Tatiana Coates twice while she was sleeping in her bed, and another gang member to shoot her 15-year-old brother, Davion Coates, 3 times while he was lying in his bed. During the shooting, the other 4 siblings hid and called the police while the gang members fled the scene. The following day, the Crip gang members found out where DeAndre was hiding in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and drove there to perform a drive by shooting on him, but were unsuccessful. During the drive-by, one of the Crips dropped his firearm, which allowed detectives to link it to the deadly home invasion in Georgia. After conducting over 50 interviews and a lengthy investigation, the FBI was able to charge 10 Rolling 20 Crips in the deaths of both Davion Coates and his sister Tatiana Coates. The 10 Crips would face a 54-count RICO indictment, including charges ranging from felony murder, malice murder, and cruelty to children. One of the suspects, Michael Decine White, was a 5th-grade school teacher at the time of his arrest. The school claimed to have conducted 2 background checks on White, but nothing showed up on his background report.
And seen at the murder scene, done by GBI forensic artist Kelly Lawson, helped Clayton County police investigators build a case on him. And Friday, the Clayton County Sheriff's Office Fugitive Task Force arrested White, a DeKalb County school teacher at Tony Elementary School, for the murders of 11-year-old Tatiana Coates and her 15-year-old brother Davion, innocent victims of gang violence. She says investigators believe gang members invaded the children's home in search of a teen who was not even there, someone who had been staying there as a favor to his mother.
It was later confirmed that both gang members, Christopher Spencer and Vernon Beeman, were connected to 3 other brutal murders. Days after killing the 2 children, both men wanted to leave the state of Georgia but had no money. One day, they heard a rumor about an elderly couple receiving a large settlement of money from a car accident. They began spying on the elderly couple before making their move. On the morning of October 24th, 54-year-old Sylvia Watson was walking to her apartment after coming from a doctor's appointment, when both men rushed her with a gun to her head, forcing her back into her car and to drive to the ATM to withdraw everything she had. The detectives discovered that the ATM camera showed the elderly lady frightened to death. The amount of money she withdrew was not much, so both men speculated that the settlement money must have been in her apartment. They forced her to drive back to her apartment, where they tied up Sylvia and her husband Samuel like animals and shot them both in the back of the head. And after that, they ransacked the apartment but found no settlement money and only left with a TV and a couple of cell phones. Right after that, the men still had no money, so they both set up a drug deal with 19-year-old Bridget Shine to sell her some marijuana. When they met at a Shell gas station, Vernon was driving and she got in the passenger seat, not knowing that Spencer was in the back seat. Spencer put a gun to the back of her head, and Vernon locked the car door and they sped off. Bridget would be found dead days later, naked in a grassy area with gunshot wounds to her back, buttocks, and legs, with her phone, car keys, and purse gone. Vernon and Spencer were the first Crips to go to trial, and they both received 2 consecutive life sentences plus 30 years and a $200,000 fine. The next defendant to go to trial was 28-year-old Jamin Bynum, who got on the stand and testified that when he entered the home of the children, Michael White, who was the school teacher, took the gun from his hands and entered 15-year-old Davion's bedroom and killed him. On the way out, White gave him back the weapon. That same murder weapon would also be the weapon that was found in the drive-by shooting 36 hours later. Jamon would receive 2 consecutive life sentences plus 22 years. The next defendant, Jamar Mitchell, received a 20-year sentence but is expected to be released in 2025. Sherman Thomas only received 1 year in jail for falsifying a police report. Chance Nelms was sentenced to 20 years, and his release date is 2038. Devin Dunson received 2 life sentences plus 20 years. As for the rest of the defendants, their sentences are currently unknown. It is possible that their sentences and whereabouts have been hidden due to them possibly cooperating with the FBI and detectives to convict their fellow gang members and receive a lesser sentence. Years later, Deundre Mitchell would be arrested in Texas at the age of 18 and would be charged with the deaths of both children for his participation in stealing the guns and being the reason the deadly home invasion occurred. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison until he was released in December of 2023. Since the death of Tatiana and Davion, their mother was successfully able to raise over $5,900 for their funeral, and her husband and the rest of her 4 kids have never returned back to the house where they had only lived for only a month before the deadly home invasion.